The 911 dispatcher's voice crackled through the patrol car speaker. "Ma'am, calling emergency services because you don't like a tree is not an appropriate use of 911. Officers are being dispatched to explain proper procedure." Officer Sarah Martinez pulled up to find HOA President Diane Cromwell dressed in her signature bright red power suit with perfectly styled platinum blonde curls, standing in my front yard, phone in hand, pointing at the massive oak tree like it had personally offended her. "That dangerous tree is a public safety hazard, and he's refusing to remove it," Diane shrieked at the officer. "I demand you arrest him for willful non-compliance with community safety standards." What Diane didn't know was that the dangerous tree she just called 911 on was a 500-year-old heritage white oak, legally protected by state and federal law, worth an estimated $250,000, and that attempting to remove it would result in criminal charges. And the homeowner she was trying to have arrested? I'm Dr. Marcus Thornton, environmental historian, and the person who'd spent 6 months getting this tree designated as a protected historical landmark, specifically to prevent people like her from touching it. If you've ever dealt with an HOA Karen who thought emergency services existed to enforce her personal preferences, you need to hear this. Drop a comment with your location because I'm genuinely curious how many HOA tyrants are abusing 911 where you're watching from. Let me give you the backstory. When I purchased my home in Maplewood Springs, a subdivision outside Asheville, North Carolina, the only reason I chose this specific property was the tree. Standing in the front yard was a white oak that predated European colonization of North America. Dendrochronology testing, tree ring analysis, confirmed it was approximately 520 years old. This tree was already 200 years old when the Mayflower landed. It stood 97 feet tall with a trunk circumference of 23 feet. The canopy spread covered nearly a quarter acre. This wasn't just a tree, it was a living historical monument, a witness to 5 centuries of history. The tree had survived hurricanes, droughts, the Civil War, and the Industrial Revolution. Cherokee people had likely gathered under its shade. It was here before roads, before cities, before the concept of homeowners associations even existed. I'm an environmental historian specializing in heritage conservation. I knew immediately this tree was significant. Before closing on the house, I had it evaluated by certified arborists, historical societies, and state heritage commissions. The findings were remarkable. The tree was in excellent health, properly maintained, and met all criteria for historical landmark designation. I spent 6 months navigating bureaucracy to get it officially protected under North Carolina's Heritage Tree Program and listed on the National Register of Historic Places as a contributing element to the region's pre-colonial history. The protections were ironclad. State law prohibited removal, significant trimming, or any action that could harm the tree without explicit approval from multiple state agencies. Violations carry criminal charges and fines up to $250,000. I'd done everything legally, carefully, and with proper documentation. The tree was safe. Then Diane Cromwell noticed it blocked her view of the mountains. She appeared on a Tuesday morning, 3 months after I'd moved in. I was photographing the oak's spring leaf development for my research documentation when I heard the aggressive click of heels on my walkway. Diane Cromwell was a walking caricature of HOA tyranny, mid-60s with elaborately curled platinum blonde hair that looked shellacked into place. She wore a blazing red blazer over a white silk blouse, that aggressive shade of red that screams, "I've never heard the word no." Her jewelry could fund a small country massive gold necklace, matching bracelet, rings on 4 fingers including a diamond that could probably be seen from space. Designer sunglasses perched on her head despite it being overcast. "You must be the history professor," she said, making history professor sound like an insult. No introduction, no pleasantries. Just immediate confrontation. Environmental historian, I corrected. Dr. Marcus Thornton. Well, doctor, she said, dripping condescension. We need to discuss your tree situation. It's blocking sightlines for multiple properties and dropping debris that requires constant cleanup. The board has voted to require its removal. I set down my camera carefully. That tree is a 500-year-old white oak, protected under state heritage laws and listed on the National Register of Historic Places. It cannot be removed. Diane laughed. Actually threw her head back and laughed like I told a joke. Honey, HOA, covenants supersede local designations. We have arborists who've determined it's a hazard. You have 30 days to remove it or face fines of $1,000 per day. She handed me a pre-printed violation notice with my address already filled in. They'd planned this before even talking to me. Section 4.7 of our tree ordinance prohibits any tree over 60 feet that blocks mountain views from more than 3 properties. Your tree violates this on multiple counts. Section 4.7 doesn't override state and federal heritage protection laws, I explained calmly. This tree is legally protected. Attempting to remove it is a criminal offense under North Carolina General Statute 160D 1205. Her smile turned vicious. We'll see what our attorneys say about that. 30 days, doctor. Start calling tree removal services. She walked away, red blazer practically glowing with entitled fury, leaving me holding an illegal violation notice for a tree that had more legal protection than most buildings. Day 3 brought an arborist. Not one I'd hired, one Diane had hired, who showed up claiming he needed to assess the hazard tree. I met him at my door. Do you have my permission to evaluate my tree? He looked uncomfortable. The HOA hired me to assess hazard conditions. The tree is on my private property. You need my permission to access it. Do you have documentation showing imminent public danger that would justify unauthorized entry? Well, no, but then you're trespassing. I suggest you leave. He did, but not before taking photos from the street. Diane's Range Rover was parked 2 houses down, watching the whole interaction. That evening, I found a hazard tree removal required sign zip-tied to the oak's trunk. I documented it, photographed it, and added it to my growing file of HOA harassment. Day 7 brought a tree removal company. 3 trucks, climbing gear, chainsaws. They pulled up at 7 a.m. like they were here to work. I ran outside. What are you doing? HOA emergency hazard tree removal, the crew chief said, showing me a work order. We're supposed to take down the oak today. That tree is protected by state and federal law. Removing it is a criminal offense. Do you have permits from the North Carolina Heritage Tree Program and approval from the National Register of Historic Places? The crew chief's face went pale. We were just told it was approved for removal. I showed him my documentation. Official letters from state agencies, the Heritage Designation Certificate, and the relevant statutes showing criminal penalties for unauthorized removal. Get your crew out of here, I said. Diane Cromwell lied to you. If you cut that tree, you'd be accomplices to a felony. They left, and Diane's Range Rover screeched into my driveway 10 minutes later. You're interfering with legitimate HOA business. She screamed, her red blazer seeming to vibrate with rage. That tree is coming down whether you cooperate or not. Diane, that's a threat to commit a crime. I'm recording this conversation. You're threatening to destroy a legally protected heritage landmark. Her platinum curls bounced as she jabbed her finger toward me. I don't care about your little history designation. This community has standards, and your tree is going to comply horizontally. Then she pulled out her phone and dialed 911. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She actually called 911 about a tree. Yes, I need police immediately, she announced in her most authoritative voice. I have a resident refusing to remove a dangerous tree that's threatening public safety. He's being hostile and refusing to comply with emergency removal orders. No, it hasn't fallen. No, there's no immediate danger, but it could fall at any time. Yes, I'll wait for officers. She hung up and smiled at me. The police will explain your legal obligations. Diane, you just committed a crime. Misuse of 911 is a misdemeanor in North Carolina. We'll see who the criminal is when the police arrive. We stood in my yard for 15 uncomfortable minutes, Diane radiating smug confidence while I quietly documented everything on my phone. When Officer Martinez arrived, Diane launched into her prepared speech before the officer could even introduce herself. Officer, thank goodness you're here. This resident is refusing to remove a hazardous tree despite repeated warnings from the HOA. We have arborist reports showing imminent danger, and he's being belligerent and threatening. Ma'am, Officer Martinez interrupted. I'm going to need you to slow down. First, what's your name? Diane Cromwell, HOA President. This is an emergency situation. Ma'am, you called 911 about a tree. That's not an emergency. Has the tree fallen? Is it actively threatening structures? It could fall at any time. Officer Martinez looked at me. Are you the homeowner? Dr. Marcus Thornton. Officer, I can explain the situation. I showed her my documentation, the heritage designation, the state protection letters, the HOA violation notice, and recordings of Diane threatening to remove a protected tree. Officer Martinez read through everything, her expression growing more serious. She pulled out her radio. Dispatch, I need a supervisor at this location. Also contact North Carolina State Parks Heritage Program. We may have an attempted destruction of protected heritage property. Diane's confident smile evaporated. What? No. This is just an HOA matter. Ma'am, Officer Martinez said firmly, this tree is protected under state law. Attempting to remove it without proper authorization is a criminal offense under North Carolina General Statute 160D1205. Did you hire a tree removal company to cut it down? We have HO authority. HOA authority doesn't supersede state heritage protection laws. Did you attempt to hire someone to remove this tree? Diane's platinum curls seemed to deflate. The tree is a nuisance. That's not what I asked. Did you hire a removal company? Yes. Were you aware the tree was protected? He told me, but I didn't think. You didn't think state law applied to you. Officer Martinez finished. Ma'am, I need you to provide the contact information for any companies you hired for this removal. The supervisor who arrived was Lieutenant James Walsh, a 25-year veteran who'd apparently dealt with HOA disputes before. He reviewed the documentation, spoke with both of us separately, and made his assessment. Ms. Cromwell, you're being cited for misuse of 911 services and conspiracy to violate state heritage protection statutes. Dr. Thornton has grounds for a restraining order if the harassment continues. Conspiracy? Diane's voice cracked. It's just a tree. It's a 500-year-old heritage landmark protected by state and federal law, Lieutenant Walsh said. Attempting to destroy it carries the same penalties as attempting to destroy any other historical monument. Would you call 911 to demand someone tear down a Civil War memorial? The citation Diane received included a court date and potential fines. But the real consequences came from the HOA board itself, when the full board learned that Diane had 1. Called 911 inappropriately. 2. Attempted to destroy a heritage landmark. 3. Exposed the HOA to criminal liability. 4. Lied to contractors about having permits. 5. Created a situation requiring police response. They held an emergency meeting and voted unanimously to remove her as president. The State Heritage Tree Program opened an investigation into the attempted removal. Their findings led to new protections not just for my tree, but for 3 other significant trees in the neighborhood. that were over 300 years old. Diane resigned from the HOA board entirely within a week. The misuse of 911 charge resulted in a $500 fine and a warning that future frivolous calls would result in more serious charges. The new HOA board president, a retired environmental lawyer named Thomas Chen, immediately updated the community bylaws to explicitly protect heritage trees and prohibit harassment of homeowners with legally protected landscaping. My oak tree became a community asset. I organized educational tours, worked with local schools to create history lessons around the tree, and coordinated with the Cherokee Historical Association to document the tree's cultural significance to indigenous peoples who'd lived here centuries ago. The tree that Diane had wanted destroyed became the community's most distinctive feature. Real estate agents now advertise near the historic 500-year-old heritage oak as a selling point. Your HOA, Karen, thinks her aesthetic preferences override 5 centuries of natural history, state law, and federal heritage protections. She called 911 like it's her personal customer service line, expecting police to enforce her demands. But here's what she doesn't understand. Some things are bigger than HOA rules. Some things existed before subdivisions, before property lines, before the concept of homeowners associations. And some things are protected by laws that can't be overridden by neighborhood covenants. Diane saw a tree blocking her mountain view. She never considered that the tree was here first 500 years first, that it was protected by multiple layers of law, that attempting to destroy it was a crime. She thought calling 911 would intimidate me into compliance. Instead, it documented her criminal intent and resulted in her own citations. Knowledge of heritage protection laws, proper documentation, and the patience to navigate bureaucracy beat entitled ignorance every time. Have you dealt with an HOA that tried to destroy something historically or environmentally significant? Share your story in the comments. Hit subscribe for more stories about HOA tyrants who learned that some things are protected by laws bigger than neighborhood covenants. Remember, just because something is old doesn't mean it's expendable. Sometimes that nuisance tree is a 500-year-old living monument that will outlive every HOA president who tries to cut it down. Asterisk. This is Dr. Marcus Thornton, reminding you that heritage protection laws exist for a reason, and calling 911 on a tree is probably not your best legal strategy. Thank you for watching. Asterisk.